Hello, all. Welcome to Parent Ignite 2024 to kick off the spring school year. This is the homeschool organization Reigning in the Chaos seminar. We're so excited that you're here and you're excited about your new school year and getting organized to have a lot of success in the year to come. So I want to introduce myself first. I'm Jess McIntyre listed there. You can see my family and I on our last vacation to Canada up there on your top left. I am an HCT or homeschool collaborative teacher with Springs, which is also a teacher of record, just in case you're new to our school and getting the hang of all of those acronyms. I used to be in ES. They're all kind of the same thing, which is called an education specialist. And that just means that they work only with homeschoolers, people who school at home. And ACT works with people who school at home and then also teaches in the classroom a couple days a week with Spring. So that's what we are. We're all teachers. And I am also a homeschool mom. I just finished being a homeschool mom, actually. I graduated, the blonde girl there in the picture, in 2024, back in May, and I've been a homeschool mom since they started schooling. So they both did TK through 12 with Springs. So I was on the front lines with you guys, and it was a wonderful experience. They both chose that year after year. I gave them a choice, and I loved doing it. So it was a great joy. I'm mourning the loss a little bit, but also I think my heart was prepared, and I'm excited for this next phase of my family. So I went to CBU, back to my educator job. I went to CBU and got my credential there. And then I've worked with K-12 with Springs. I also taught in a public school classroom in my hometown of Riverside in kindergarten and first grade. So I love the littles. But now that I'm in a classroom again with Springs, I teach fifth and sixth graders. So I love all the ages. I've worked with them all, been a parent of them all, and a teacher of them all. So above and beyond that, I love to organize. When I want to have some downtime, it's organizing a closet. So I love to organize and keep things organized, not just with my homeschool, but in my home. So that's what brings me here today. And I have a wonderful roster parent on my roster that I've been able to develop a relationship with over the last couple of years. And so she is just like me. She loves to organize things. So I asked her to come join us today and share all of her wisdom as well. So I will let Anna introduce herself.
Hello, thank you so much, Jess. I'm really excited to be here and kind of share some of the tips and tricks and things that I've figured out over the years from being a homeschooling parent. Again, my name is Anna Gamboa. I live in Riverside, California, and this is my 8th year of homeschooling. I have two wonderful kids, which you can see in the picture with me, and my husband. We're at Disneyland. My daughter is creative, she's artistic, she's 10, and I have a 12-year-old son who loves engineering, STEM, anything entrepreneurial, and he's a ferocious but sweet little jujitsu fighter. So my background is I have a degree in exercise science. I'm working on a master's in rehabilitative science. Both I've done while homeschooling. And some of my favorite things to do are cook lavish meals for my family, go hiking and running, arts and crafts, fun adventures like field trips, festivals, and museums. So again, I'm really excited that Jess asked me to be here today and share some of the things I've learned over the years with you.
All right. Well, uh, in your Parent Ignite website links, there should be a link to this handout, which is our handout for this little seminar. So if you want to go get that, if you haven't already, pause the video and go click on that link so you can get this all loaded up on your machine. You can print it out. I did leave room for you to take notes by hand if you're that type of note taker, but those are live links there to our examples that we're going to refer to throughout. So Anna has all of hers on one document for you, and I have all of mine on another document for you. So you'll want to make sure that you have that as an electronic copy somewhere. You can make a copy and save it to your own drive so that you can access those links. And then you also have access to our slides. So just make sure you have a hold of that and are ready to take notes on it, whether electronically or by hand. So I'll give you a second to go do that, or you can pause it. and then we'll move on. All right, so our objectives today are to talk about organization, and we are referring to how you organize your academic schedule and your to-do list and those type of things, all of the things you would like to get done in the day, rather than your homeschool area, which is a whole other fun avenue of organizing and making sure that you have, we're going to touch on it a little bit, but having your books in a certain spot or in baskets. I know Anna's going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to focus more on how to get through those action items throughout your day and your week with your students. And so that's what we're talking about mostly. And that type of organization does really impact your outcomes with your students. So as as the teacher of record, I'm always thinking about those goals and moving your students toward the end goal of the school year, being on grade level or above grade level, or learning to read or learning to write an essay, whatever those academic goals are. So having this type of organization really does impact that in a big way, because you can set those goals and figure out the manageable steps to get there and make sure you stay on track with the different things that you're doing to get there, whether it's just getting through a curriculum or finishing a project or getting to the end of an assignment with a big project like a big essay. That takes actionable steps. So rather than just having them willy-nilly, like we'll get to it when we get to it, or we think we're going to have time for it, this is a way to make sure you actually get to it. So our goal today is to help you develop a balanced routine. So we're going to talk a lot about getting, those action items in, but also balancing it with things like things in your community, festivals. Anna mentioned that. I really love going to festivals too, and making sure that you have time for field trips, time for downtime, time for creativity. So we're not going to just talk about academics, but making sure we're balancing that with all of the real life and the fun life and all the things that we want to make sure, the freedoms that we have to homeschool, we want to make sure we get it all in there. So we also want to talk about how to incorporate learning that's outside of your books. So there's so much more to put on a to-do list than just your math lessons for the day and your writing lessons for the day, because we want to make sure that we're doing the things outside of the books and we're planning for it, so that one, it doesn't take away from our academic objectives, but also we make sure we do those things. So we make sure we're going on field trips or going to the library or just having downtime outside in nature, just to lay and in the sun and be imaginative. Those are all things that are more than valid to put on a learning plan. So what is the importance of a structured weekly schedule? I do love a fair amount of unstructured time in my life. When I go on vacation, I do not have an agenda. I usually just pull into that town and I find the fun things to do and we go do them. So I do a little bit of research, but I just wanted to point out that even though I plan a lot in this and I do love to organize, I don't plan everything. So I'm not that type of person. I am a little bit type A, but I see the validity in having a weekly schedule. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. And one thing that is really great for having a weekly schedule or daily schedule is developing autonomy in your kids. We all want our kids to learn to do things without us eventually, right? Hopefully. And so this is a way to do that. Children are there's studies that prove that kids love to take ownership and understand their day, their objectives, their schedule. And when we don't give them that, it can make them feel a little lost when they don't have any control of their day. So for them to know what's expected of them for the day, for them to be able to take that ownership and put it on themselves, if they're a morning person and you're not. I have a lot of students that get up early, they do their math or whatever for the morning before mom even makes breakfast, because maybe mom is a, get up at 7 or 8 kind of mom, which is great. That's why we love homeschooling. But maybe the kid is up at 6 and he wants to get his schoolwork done. So he already knows what he can do. Because he has that autonomy in knowing what's going on. And as he gets older, more and more of it. The routine benefits for a family are multiple for parents and students. One, it gives you some downtime because you can still be having your kids hit objectives, but you can get things like masters, like Anna did. I'm in the middle of my master's. I got a second teaching credential. And because we had that routine in place, our kids know what to do independently when we need to get things done. So it's a benefit for parents. It gives us a little time to maybe go check the laundry because they already have something in place they're going to do, rather than us always having to be right there. And then again, we talked a little bit about the student students and the benefits for autonomy and control. Maybe you've noticed in an elementary school classroom, they have the little, clocks with this time we're doing this. And it really does give kids ownership if they can have that routine. I like a printed to-do list. Anna's going to have some great ideas if you're more electronic, but I'm a little more old school, and I love having printed to-do lists. So that you can see a picture there of putting them all on a clipboard. So I print out one for the week. Some people do them for the day, and I have a couple examples of that. But I like for the week having it all there, and I print multiple weeks so that I can pace out things the kids can flip through and think, oh, what am I doing next week, the next week? We'll talk more about that, but that's kind of how I like to have it right there tangible for them. And at the beginning of the year, it's good to have an annual plan. I'll show you an example and your high school syllabus. I did high school with Springs, and you have your syllabus at the beginning. It's kind of like an annual plan because it maps out your pacing and your curriculum that you're going to use and the objectives you're going to hit in that class. So very similar to an annual plan that we use K-8. Hopefully you're familiar because all TORs do them with your students, but it's important to have that so you can make sure I'm going to get to the end and we can adjust things as we go. But you aren't, back in the old days before we did annual plans, we would just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to get through this many a day. But a lot of times we hit the end of the year and we didn't finish thing and hit our goals. So that really helps. Also, planning ahead is really important because to be able to hit some of the bigger projects that Springs has, and I think are great life skills, like maybe National History Day or science fair projects, or even finishing a large essay at the end of grade school. We're trying to do more than just a one sitting kind of writing. It needs to be multiple sessions. So being able to get to the end of some of those projects, it's good to plan it and say, okay, we're going to work on our science fair and we're going to get these objectives done this week, these objectives done next week, these objectives done the next week, and then in 4 weeks is when it's due. So if we just procrastinate or we think, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, but then grandma comes to visit or something, that planning ahead doesn't happen if it's not somewhere on a list organization. And then my last thing is it does help us plan for reality, because if we can really think about what's going on in our life, we're going to talk about a little bit with assessments and people visiting and that sort of thing. It helps you to be able to hit those goals while still considering vacations, visits from families, field trips, that sort of thing, so that you can make sure you hit your goals within the reality of your life. So how do you do it? I have a couple examples on the screen that are from my handout that I linked in the main handout. So Jess is my name. So if you want to look at these, you can click on Jess's handout. And so having a year plan is great. That's a really simple one down at the bottom. I know different ESs and TORs have the same thing or different, but basically you want to look at your learning plans or your months. If you like it to do month by month, if you like a September, October, November kind of situation, we can always overlay that with learning plans. It doesn't have to be that way for Springs. But looking at what you're going to use, even if it's unit studies, what units you're going to do. I'm going to do dinosaurs this month. I'm going to do apples this month. I'm going to do that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a book, a curriculum, but curriculums are a little easier. And planning that out throughout the year so that you make intentional choices and you know where you're starting and where you'd like to end. So some components to consider are definitely your core subjects, right? We've talked about that, math and ELA and even your history and science, but also electives. Like Anna said, we've got jujitsu. My kids did piano, guitar, ukulele. We're a very artsy family. So thinking about that, making those choices at the beginning of the year, getting the teachers in lined up and everything like that. And then Anna's going to talk about it a little bit, but making sure you look at your school requirements and figure out when you're going to do your iReady diagnostic and that sort of thing. So I'll let her going into that a lot, but we all have to hear things more than one time. So I thought I'd mention it there. And then also your extracurriculars. So if your child's going to be on a swim team or a soccer team and you're going to have a couple practices a week, making sure that that's on the annual plan. So if you look at my annual plan example there, I have like miscellaneous and personal to do. So those are on the annual plan. So it's not just, math lessons, reading lessons. It has all of life on there so that we can really look at that. And then also you can see it has field trips. We even write on there if we're going on vacation so that we can plan and keep that in the schedule. So a good thing to do is to involve your students. I developed this layout working with my child who is dyslexic because she liked the boxes, she liked the simplicity, she liked to be able to touch it. She helped me figure out the categories. So that's something that we worked together to do. And we printed out enough for the learning plan. So for me, I would print 4 at a time. Sometimes I would go to a holiday break if we were getting to that, or if we had a big goal and I wanted to see, okay, how are we going to get to that science fair? But most of the time we had at least 4 out on the clipboard so she could look, and so that we could move things around if reality, right? So if we didn't get to something this week, we already have the to-do list printed so we could erase it and move it to the next week and just know, okay, we don't have to worry about it because we just moved it, and next week is when we're going to do it. So, and it also helped us see what we were getting done a lot and what we were kept pushing off too, because that helped us realize, okay, maybe we should start with that thing we keep pushing off. So, and then I would keep these for my TOR. So when I met, especially in high school, when I wasn't my own TOR, I had a high school teacher of record, and I would keep these, take them to my learning plan meetings, and be able to tell them exactly what lessons we accomplished. So having a to-do list is a great way to communicate with your teacher as you meet for springs too. So I kind of talked about it, but make sure that when you're prioritizing your task, you're giving yourself margin. So not just for the planned margins that you're going to need, like, visits from grandma, but also just a little bit of extra room in it. And you'll kind of get better at that as you go throughout the year, but giving yourself that grace to not get everything done is really important. So this is just a starting point. I always tell my kids that it's okay if we don't get everything done and we have margin, but then again, it does help us realize what we're not getting done so that we can maybe start with that next time, or we can think, do we really need to be doing this extra program that we don't ever seem to get to? Is it impacting us that we aren't getting to it, or is it just a fluff that maybe we shouldn't have put in our year and we can take it off if we realize, and not beat ourselves up and think, oh, I'm not getting to everything. Okay, maybe we don't need it. So that's a great way to use your to-do list too. Staying focused is important, especially if you have a little one. A lot of times we're still in that preschool mode, not preschool, but before school. And we think, grandma's coming over. And I always thought the phrase, if no one teaches my child to read, they're not, like, if I don't teach them to read, then no one else is what I meant to say. So I have to make that time to actually sit and school my child. So the to-do list can help you become aware of that. Like, these are the things I want to get done with my child this week. So I have to say no to that extra play date, or no to grandma coming over at 10 a.m. Like, say, okay, come over after nap or something like that so that I can have this time. But also being flexible, because we have it written down and we know what we want to get done, so we can move it. Like if grandma's time is right now, then we can say, okay, I was going to get this nap done right now, but I'll move it to this time because I have it on a to-do schedule. I know I'm going to get it done, and I can think about it that way. And then actually making time for your table time is what I call it. I always did my schooling at the dining room table, so I call it table time. By making sure I was having those times throughout the weekend, so I can look at my schedule and think, oh, we have a field trip on Friday and they have learning center on Thursday. Do I have enough time for my 4 math lessons? No. So do I want to do it on Saturday? Am I going to do 5 next week when we have a little more time? So being able to manage that table time and really be intentional about getting that done. And then also managing for downtime. So we would, even when they were really little, we would put recess on the to-do list. One, they loved checking it off, but I had a policy when they were little that for every hour of school, they would spend 30 minutes outside. This was like they were K2. And so I would kick them out. They got no electronics. They just had to go outside and just be outside, and they would do sidewalk chalk and imaginative play and all kinds of things. So that was planned in. That downtime was planned in. So do that, especially when they're younger. And then we would map it out together. So on Sunday night, I would make sure I kind of had everything written on my to-do list. So I was like, okay, this is everything we're going to get done. But I did not assign it to days. So I would sit down with them on Monday morning and we would map it out together so that they knew when they were going to do it. They also had ownership, and kids learn more. People learn more what they do than what they hear or say, or that sort of thing. So if they're doing it with you, so if they're in it with you and they're thinking, okay, I have these lessons, I'm going to do one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, one on Friday, then they kind of know going into their week. It isn't just you telling them. So really involve your kids. Another thing we talked about, both of us love field trips. And so listing your field trips on your to-do list, that's one of the benefits of having more than one to-do list done, ready to go, is because you can see, okay, I have 3 field trips this month, so I need to be intentional about getting these other things done. And then also valuing creativity. So make sure that you've got that creative time, that downtime for imaginative time, or those art lessons, or whatever you're doing, and then also creativity even in their schoolwork, and making sure that you have time for that budgeted in, because so many times again we just put the actual action items and we don't allow space for there to be creativity. And then I've talked about it a little bit, that project-based learning. I said science fair a couple times. I love National History Day. Also, my kids did that really, really heavily when they were in school, and it takes a lot of work. So making sure that you're not telling yourself, oh, we have to just get to our history chapters, but that you validate that time for project-based learning, and that can be the lesson for that day. But a lot of times we put it on top of, and we're like, we'll get it when we get to it. And then a lot of people don't hit those goals of getting that larger project done. But I think that's more valuable learning than some of our, read the chapter learning, even though they need the input. When they get into college or career, they're not going to be remembering the facts that they learned about history, the overarching, yes. They're going to be, if they know how to do a big project, they can write grants, they can write proposals, they can start businesses, because they've learned how to do big projects and hit those little goals that get you to the big project. Oop, I went one past. Let me go back one more time, see if there's anything. The biggest thing I wanted to touch on is that mid-year slump as I close up, because all of us usually hit the middle of the year and we're burnt out. I'm burnt out. My kids are burnt out. I think you're probably the same way. But I found that the more years that we did the to-do list and had things paced out and planned out, that was less. And I was able to know I've hit these goals because I can look back and I have these goals and I know how I'm going to get there. And so it doesn't seem like such an insurmountable thing to get to the end of the school year. So you really do get less tired, less burnout, less why am I doing this, less how can I keep doing this all the way until May. So this hopefully will be a way to help you. So I'm going to let someone who's still exactly in the trenches and someone who has a little bit more use of technology and some great tools that way to show you her perspective. So take it away, Anna. Oop, Anna, you are still muted. So unmute and then we'll get to hear your wisdom. There you are.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I wanted to start off by sharing about my feelings about multitasking. Again, these are just tips and tricks that I've learned. They may or may not be right for you, or maybe you need to try different ways of doing things to find your individual style. I know I've tried a lot of different things over the years. Oh, we lost the slideshow, Jess.
Oh, thank you.
So,
So sorry.
no problem. So, one thing that I found helps us quite a bit is if I plan some one-on-one time with each of my students, they know they've become reliable with understanding the way the schedule works. And if I just kind of let them have a free-for-all all the time, asking every question off the top of their head, then it really could encroach on one student's time. So, and it gets very chaotic. It can get very overwhelming as a parent teacher to have all these things going on all at once, especially if you're schooling more than one grade level. So I like to have some one-on-one time. And then I ask my kids, if they could move forward with what they're working on and save their questions for their time or for when we have an opportunity, so that it doesn't encroach on my other students' time. I included a sample schedule of how maybe that could work, where, for example, my daughter does some elective things and some iReady time on her own while I work with my son on his math. And then when he gets to an independent portion of his math, that's when mom gets to do some chores and things like that. We do lots of breaks in our home. We need them. So I always try to include that in my scheduling. I have independent activities ready for my kids so they could have a box they could have a backpack or something prepared with independent activities so that they can know what they can do. And you want to pick things that are at or near grade level, maybe even just a little under, so that they can be independent and not have a lot of questions and feel confident in what they're doing, but still be learning. I also realized that I like to keep my phone on do not disturb mode. So I have an Apple phone. I'm not sure how it works on other phones, but there is a do not disturb area, and you can allow certain people or certain apps to come through even when your phone is on silent. So of course my husband and my parents can still get a hold of me. Um, and then it allows you to set aside that block of time where maybe you're not getting all these notifications, spam calls, whatever it might be. And the reason why it's really important for me, I noticed that my daughter, who gets very easily distracted, would shift her attention every time my phone made a sound. But I realized that, you know, when you resist that urge to multitask, to clean, to be on your phone, and you're really focused in on your student in that moment, they will match your focus. They will feel seen, they'll feel heard, and it does improve their focus. So I found that more gets done in a more timely way when I made sure to set aside all those other things going on in my brain and really give them my full attention in the moment. So just like I said, I try to set aside a time for chores and responsibilities that I know, okay, I'm going to do that later. Um, I also give my kids group work. So they're about 2 grades apart. The older students often help younger students, but it can go the other way around. They really help each other and feed off each other's energy and help answer each other's questions. And it gives them an opportunity to have some more independence, more autonomy, to try to problem solve together. But that also gives me a couple minutes to do things that maybe I need to be doing while they help each other. So this next slide, I put a couple images of my to-do list that I've made, and they are included in the handout. I have 2 different ones here, and I've tried a bunch of different ways of doing things, and sometimes I'll change them right in the middle of the process. I'll make adjustments. So the one on the left has everything that they would need to do in one day, and the one on the right is everything they might do in a week. I like to have the title of the activity typed up ahead of time so that they can't complain that they can't read my writing. I know that would delay things or create more questions if they couldn't read my writing. So I started typing them in. So I love to have the independent box, as I had mentioned. Also, my kids they have a box. Some kids use a backpack, but it has all their worksheets, their books, their supplies, everything that they could need to do their activities so that they could prepare for their activity or their lesson, and they could also transition into the next one on their own as independently as possible, which, you know, when they've got lots of questions, there's always things going on. Being able to have them have a routine and being able to set up and transition on their own really gives you, the parent, a lot of, it reduces the chaos. I love having to-do lists that my kids can understand. There are picture lists out there. And then, as Jess talked about, I do use an app. It's called the S'mores Up app, and that has been wonderful for us. And I will touch on that in a later slide. So the next thing I just put this for fun. A lot of people, you know, think that in school they've got to have a room, a special place. Jess mentioned she likes to have her kids at the table. I do it a little different. This is what our homeschool looks like. My kids, I let them set up where they're the most comfortable, where they can focus. So as you can see, my daughter likes to be in silly costumes, and she's likes to be on the couch and be any way she's comfortable. My son likes to be on the stairs, under the dinner table, wearing every hat he owns on his head. And, I sometimes there's a tendency to want to ask your kids to sit in a certain place and sit in a certain way. But if they're happy and they're focused and they're getting the work done, then that's all I want. That's what I need. I also love to get work done in the car. You would be amazed at how much can get done on a drive to school, to learning center, or to a dentist appointment, or to a meeting. So my kids have little clipboards with their work for in the car, and you can see a little photo I have of them doing their car classwork. The next thing I wanted to share with you is rubrics. So we talked about them in the parent certification. That's how I learned about them. And I don't know if they're still in there, but these are a lifesaver. I would often try to make my expectations clear. I'll explain it to my kids and then they'll forget. And so once I started giving them rubrics, it made everything laid out for them that they could read and check every criteria that I wanted to see. And I saw they started to become more independent, but they also started improving the quality of the work because they could see what they wanted or what I wanted. And they have picture rubrics for younger kids, or you can have more complicated rubrics for, your older kids. I also love to use Siri and Alexa. My kids are bossing Alexa around all day long. They're telling her to set timers. They're asking her questions. How do you spell this? Every thought that comes to their brain while they're reading, they'll ask her some information about that. They keep to-do lists. They can add things to a to-do list with her. So we love using that little bit of technology. And that, again, it helps them to be more independent. The next thing I included is this is an image of a master Google Doc that I make every year. So the first picture is my annual plan that I make. That's what that Jess uses for her paperwork. And I lay everything out under the categories, and then I put blue for my son and pink for my daughter. So that color coding helps me see what each of them are doing. And then I also included a little picture of what my week planning looks like. So I do that the tabs where I have month to month. So I have an annual plan tab. And then I have meeting notes tab where I compile all the questions I have for my upcoming meetings. I also take notes when I'm meeting with Jess. I have all my templates and my checklists. I have a list for ordering. I personally have a year overview so I could see all the themes for each month for, say, like Girl Scouts or things they're doing in the Learning Center each month. And then I have a materials list. We buy a lot of curriculum and sometimes we forget what we have and we forget all the neat things that are, sitting in a drawer. So I like to have all that listed so I could go back and see it and remember to use it. I personally find these Google Docs to be really valuable to share with my TOR. My husband and my kids can now see it and use it. This is just a little preview of my parent certification project that I made. I did include that and some of the information from the master document in my paper my handout. This is a co-op document, and so it allows you to update things and disseminate information to people in your co-op in real time. They can see things as they change, so you never have an outdated document. Parents and other people you're working with get current information. So I included a template for that in my handout that you're welcome to use as your own. And this I made just specifically for this workshop. I wanted to share with parents some of the different things that come along during the year. so that you can adjust your pacing for the things that spring is going to ask you to do, some of the cool events and events and deadlines. And then also the holiday breaks. We take a day here or a week there, and it does, it can impact your pacing. I was always that parent that suddenly realized that I was, behind because I didn't allot time for certain things that the school was going to ask me to do. So a couple things I just wanted to point out that's on this, and again, this is in the handout. In October, November, Springs does ask us to have our kids take a little writing class and provide a writing sample. And this can take several days sometimes to accomplish. So I like to keep these little empty spaces in my pacing and in my planning so that once I find out when those will be due and when they're available for us to start doing, then I can start moving things around and have places to put these things that I know I'm going to need to do. And another thing is CASP preparation. CASP it's so important to give our kids time to learn the software and to see some sample questions and to prepare, and then also allotting some empty space for CASP testing, because sometimes that is going to be placed in our normal instruction time. So again, I like to leave some empty spaces, and then I can make those adjustments once those schedules are released. My TOR gives us an assessment schedule for like our iReady and all of the different things she needs us to do. And so I just keep those spaces blank. And then once we find out an actual date, then I know where I need to move it. The last thing I want to share with you is the S'mores Up app. So this is an app I found and I'm so grateful for. It's available to download on a phone or a tablet, and it is a chore app, but I customize it to use for my kids' assignments. So I take individual icons and pictures that correlate with the curriculum they're using. And this is just some screenshots of the parent screen and what I would see managing my household and all of the tasks that I've assigned. I can give them rewards and bonuses. We can go ahead and move to the next one. The second one, or the second page, shows what your actual uh, what your actual task would look like when you're creating it. There's a lot of customization, a lot of adjustments that you can make to personalize every task for what you want to do. You can assign it to more than one student. You can alternate responsibilities. You can skip weeks. There's a lot of customization, including notes, attachments, photo attachments. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. There is an option for a picture approval. And the reason I love that is because the picture approval, if you require that, you can use that photo to remind you of what things you might need to fill in for your annual plan. So when you write, what spelling words you did, if you can't remember which ones they were working on, to put what words you did in your annual plan, you can go look at your pictures and see exactly what they were working on. So that is very useful when filling out the annual plan and preparing you and your TOR for your meetings. I just wanted to kind of share personally, this made a huge difference for us. I no longer had to remake to-do lists. My kids didn't have to wait for me to take that time and keep remaking it because they are revolving. They found it to be really fun. They're very enthusiastic and excited to do it. It gives them little rewards and digital trophies that they're excited about. These images show what it looks like on their end for their reward shelf and their tasks. My daughter, who is not really enthusiastic about schoolwork, for the first time in our entire schooling, she's excited. She opens it up every day and she really wants to check off all those things and get those trophies and get those rewards. They also can't tell me that they can't read it anymore. So that makes it really easy and really clear. This does give you a 45-day trial. And then after that, it is $5 a month, which personally, I find that to be really reasonable for what it is. So you can try it out for yourself and see if you think that that would be helpful to your family. But most importantly, it's fun. They find it really fun. It makes doing their chores and their schoolwork kind of exciting. So that's it for me, and I'm going to hand it back to Jess to close us out.
All right. Well, I was trying to mute myself when we lost the slides before, so I apologize for any technical errors. As you've probably noticed, we're on a recording because technical errors. We didn't record our live sessions. So if you want to just keep plowing through and stay with us until the end, we're going to close it up in a couple of minutes. But we did want to have this space here if you wanted to pause and just take some time. If you have, if you're set aside and you're watching this and the kids are being taken care of by somebody else, you can pause here, go to the handout, click on some of the links that we have there. We have the link to some examples of annual plans and to-do lists from my experience. And then we have Anna's that has links to a lot of the resources she just talked about with her parent certification projects, that really great list of things that Springs is going to ask for you to do. All those things are really helpful. So if you kind of want to go poke around and maybe even download the S'mores app on your phone so you can start checking that out. I did want to mention it'll look like a chore app. So I downloaded after Anna told me all about it. And it's meant to be a chore app to tell your kids to go mop the floors. But Anna spent some time, and we all kind of have that time with our phones nowadays. So when we're sitting on the couch at the end of the day, looking at your phone, you could be programming this for a little bit. And she found icons for the different kinds of lessons she wanted to put in and made her little tasks. So rather than asking her kids to mop the floors through the app, she's asking them to do iReady or to do their math or whatever. So that can be a fun little task for you if you want to get that downloaded and see if that's something you want to look at more. So feel free to pause. One thing I did forget to say as you're looking at my to-do list, it has 2 lines. And the way I used those was the line closest to the words was my little place they would put an M for Monday or Tuesday. So you can print those out and then put the days on there later. And then the other one was where they would check it off. So that's why there's 2 lines as you're looking at that, and that might help you. And then also both of us put on our to-do lists the name of the program. So we would put all about spelling or story of the world as a typed item. And then we would either type, to put in the new learning, or we would handwrite it, whichever way we're doing it. But that's the part that changes week to week. So we have it all loaded with our curriculum choices and our activity choices, and then we would add it in there. And the best way, Anna pointed out that it would be good for me to mention that a TOR wants to see your new learning. So rather than just say read for 20 minutes, it would be a good idea to put read Harry Potter book 2 for 20 minutes, just so you can keep record of it for your TOR, and so it's specific for your student. But it is good to keep record somewhere of what they're doing instead of just, go to gymnastics. It would be good to say, practice your cartwheels at gymnastics. So it's a good routine to get into, to put that new learning on the to-do list so that you have record of it, one, and so that you're clear with your students. So if you want to pause, go ahead and go do that. And we'll see you in a minute when you sign back on so we can close it up. All right, well, if you stuck with us or if you're signing back on, we just wanted to take a moment to kind of round things out in your mind as we close things up. So there's always things to do afterward, and hopefully this inspired you to do some other things. So of course we have the S'mores app there, a couple places that I wanted to highlight. One, there's a great blog called Organized Homeschooler, and you can get on their mailing list or just read their articles. And that has a lot of great tips and tricks. And then when I started schooling, I actually bought this big yellow book, and it was called 100 Places to Go in Southern California with Your Homeschoolers, or 100 Great Field Trips. I can't remember. They don't even make it anymore, because why would you need a book when you have the internet? But I didn't have that back in the day. I mean, there was internet. I'm not that old, but we didn't all have it in our pockets on our iPhones. So now there's a great website, and they actually have an Instagram too called SoCal Field Trips. And they just have wonderful field trips. So it's really great when you're organizing to go at the beginning of the year or go whenever you're starting a new unit and actually look up where you can go in Southern California or wherever you are if you're going on vacation or something. But this is for us locally, and see all the great places to see ancient history. Or, I mean, I just found some for ancient history that I didn't know about. There's a Fullerton Art Museum that specializes in Egyptian art, and I found it through this website. So go and check out different field trips you can plan into your year. And if you want further reading, we have some organization, that home organization for homeschooling. It talks a lot more about your space. So if you're really wanting to organize your area or your storage systems, that kind of thing, that's there. And then the organized homeschooler goes over a lot of it. So if you're a book type person, those are there. But as you're thinking about that and closing up your thoughts, because I know we gave you a lot of information, as to really narrow it down, and you can come back to this later, you can look at your notes later for all of the things. But for right now, think of one thing you want to start. So one tidbit, if you want to, I'm going to start the Some More app, or I'm just going to, figure out my annual plan, or I'm going to get a weekly to-do list going. Just one thing you want to start, and then maybe one thing you want to stop. You want to stop doing, like, I want to, cut this out of my routine or cut this out of my thought processes. Maybe it's just I want to stop beating myself up for not getting to every little thing that I plan on my to-do list, and start being more flexible to move things around. So it doesn't have to be actual action items. It can be a mindset. And then one thing to think about, one thing to just slow down and think through, maybe investigate more. Maybe it's that I want to think more about field trips, and I'm going to go investigate some of those websites. So that's all I have. I'll let Anna fully close this up in a minute, but I did want to draw attention. There's my email and Anna's email. We're just an email away. We'd love to conversate with you about any of these things further. We're both open to that, and we'd love to hear from you. So just pop us a line, and we'd love to chat. So I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add before we stop the recording, Anna.
Oh, I just want to say thank you so much for having me today. I'm so happy to be able to share. And I want to reiterate that, yes, I love being able to help as much as I can. So please feel free to use that email, and I'll help any way I can.
Wonderful. We had such a good time with you all today, and we're really thankful that you chose to watch our seminar, even after the fact, and hopefully it can just bring some clarity to your year. So please pardon my horrible ending to this, because I can't see the button to stop recording. So I'm going to stop sharing and go to my Zoom. But this is the end of our seminar. Feel free to sign off or end the video as we close up with our recording. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.